These words that I proclaim, they might sound cliche, but you gotta do what you gotta do to keep from going insane. It's not about losing the weight, it's not about making the grade, it's about creating your own fate through the love you cultivate. It's not about trying to be perfect, it's not just scratching the surface. You have a beauty, so much more than just skin deep. Don't care what people say, just follow your own way. It's not about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about dancing in the rain. Dancing in the rain. It's not about hit or miss, it's about following your bliss. It's about being brave. Your own life you gotta save from drowning in the sea of mediocrity. Don't let them tell you who to be, only you can set you free. It's about planting the seed, it's about being who you need instead of throwing away the key. Being open to receive, no matter what's your age. If you're black, white, straight or gay, there's no more time for shame, 'cause you're dancing in the rain. Dancing in the rain. We're dancing in the rain. Dancing in the rain. Like smoke from a burning flame, with every dream there comes a haze. Gotta have some faith when you're dancing in the rain. These words that I proclaim, they might sound cliche, but you gotta do what you gotta do, 'cause you're dancing in the rain. Dancing in the rain.
So last year I had a nice adventure going cross country. And this year, I decided to do something a little different. One part of my condition I didn't talk about was the inevitable end. So I decided to talk with some families that have dealt with it. During my break, it turned out that I needed a surgery. The surgery was called a laminectomy, and it was the longest procedure I ever had. Having this surgery made me think a little more about my death that would eventually happen. So I figured if I was going to think about that, I would meet with some people that had already dealt with it. Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Cassidy Christensen. I go by Cass.
And who your parents?
Who my parents are? My parents are Mark and Roxanne Christensen. I also have a sister, Carrie, and I had a brother, Matt.
Okay, now you say, did he pass away?
He did. He passed away when he was 16 years old. It was in December of 2002.
Now, do you recall when he was first diagnosed?
Vaguely. I think I was 10 years old when he was diagnosed. I remember being at the hospital, but I didn't understand what was going on. So looking back, I do remember that time. I just didn't know what was going on.
Now, you were also tested, and you're a carrier.
Yes. I wasn't tested until Matt was diagnosed when I was 10 years old, and I wasn't tested, I believe, until I was 15 or 16 years old.
Okay. Now, do you recall the early days before you knew Matt had Hunter's?
Not very well. I was too young. I mean, I do remember certain experiences. I remember trips that we went on as a family, but I don't remember that far back, no. Not very well.
But do you remember any physical limitation by him?
Before he was diagnosed, I remember my mom saying that he didn't walk at the same time that my sister and I did. I don't remember this though. And I remember my mom saying that he was harder to potty train and things like that, but I just don't remember it. I was too young.
Your father told me last night that you remember being in your room, and he always had the room above you.
So I actually remember even before he had the room above me, we lived in a house, and our bedrooms, the kids' bedrooms, were on the main floor. My parents' bedroom was upstairs. I remember that. And then I also had, we lived in a house and my room was above his. Yep.
And you always heard noise, breathing.
I did, and I'll tell you, it was interesting. When I was younger, I remember I went to spend the night at a friend's house for the first time, and it was so quiet I couldn't fall asleep. Her mother was up with me all night, and she ended up taking me home because I just was so uncomfortable, and it was so quiet that it was too quiet for me to sleep.
And how old were you when Matthew passed away?
I was 22.
Do you remember that at all?
Yes, I think I remember most of it. Yep. I was in college up at Utah State, so that was about 100 miles away from my parents, where my parents lived with Matt. And I remember it was Halloween night. My mom called and said, "Matt's sick, you should probably come home in the morning." So my sister and I thought, he always gets sick, and we don't know if this is any different than any of the other times. So we just packed for a weekend and came home, and he was much more sick than we thought. He had a recent sleep study that was indicating that he had high carbon dioxide levels, and it was pretty serious. So we decided that weekend that we would move home for the rest of the semester. So after that weekend, we went back up to school and moved all of our stuff back. So that was the beginning of November, and then throughout November and most of December, we had extended family come and visit and spend some time with Matt. And I remember his birthday. His birthday is December 22nd, and I remember his birthday, he had a Harry Potter cake. I don't know why I remember that, but it was Harry Potter. And then on the 28th, he passed away, and it was interesting because when people would ask him when his birthday is, he would say, December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas. I'm a Christmas baby. And so it's interesting that he passed away 3 days after Christmas. So
interesting.
yeah, it's kind of neat.
Now, do you think it helped you to have your sister to share this with?
Yes, I think it helped to have my sister, when we were scared about, medical scares, but it also helped to have my sister talking with our parents too. I mean, my parents were always stressed when he would get sick, and so I think it helped to have her to talk about Matt, but then to also talk about our parents as well. So it was really nice. Her and I are 16 months apart, so we're very close in age, and we've always been very close.
Now, your children have never met Matt.
They have not. Matt passed away at the end of 2002, and Amelia was born the beginning of 2006. So she knows about him. She knows what he looks like, and she knows that he passed away early. And I've told her a little bit about him and why he passed away. So she knows of him. And then Eli, he's only 6 months, so he has no idea.
So did you adopt Eli because you would be scared to have a hunter boy?
So when I got pregnant with Amelia, I went through a lot of testing during pregnancy and found out shortly after the testing that she was a female. So that's when the testing stopped. I don't know yet if she's a carrier, but when I decided that I wanted to have another child, yes, that's why I looked into adoption. And there are a lot of families that we know that have adopted, and so I had heard about their stories and just decided to look into it.
Okay. Now, having a hunter child in your life, you must have been exposed to a lot of medical things.
Probably, but I don't remember a lot of it. I remember him having hernia surgery, so I remember him being in the hospital for that. And I remember when he had surgery on his hands, but I don't remember spending a lot of time at hospitals.
Do you have any advice you would share with parents or siblings?
Probably just that they should find a support group. I think that's the best thing about Angel's Hands Foundation, is that those families have other families to talk to about medical advice, just emotional support, anything like that. I would find a support group. That's my advice for them.
Okay. And now, how has it been interacting with me?
It's been great. You remind me a lot of Matt. I was told that looks like Matt with facial hair, and that is absolutely true.
Thanks.
It's been great. And your voice sounds a lot like him.
Yeah, we all look alike.
Mm-hmm. But you especially, don't you think, Dad?
Sorry to interrupt here.
No.
It's because most of the other, or all of the other adults with MPS that we've met have been larger in stature, and you're about the size that Matt was. A little bit taller than Matt, but you're smaller stature than most of the adults that we've met. And so that might be why you remind us.
Like Brian.
Brian's taller. Greg and Scott Day, they had her or Shay, but they had the MPS look, but Scott was shorter, but Greg was taller. And I don't know that you knew them, Cass, but
I don't remember if meeting them. I don't think so.
Adam is short, but he's stockier than you.
And
We'll put that on there. So it's your size, I think, and as well as your personality. Matt was a jokester and loved being around people, and I've known you for 24 hours, and you're kind of that same way. It's fun to give you a bad time and tease a little bit. And Carrie was teasing you pretty good last night too.
What was she teasing you about?
oh, I don't remember.
Just being
everything.
Carrie. Just being Carrie.
It was just like stupid things.
Okay.
That's Carrie.
Yeah.
It was like she was trying to like stab me.
Just pushes buttons.
Which is exactly how it was with Matt. With Matt, I was a caretaker to him.
Oh, did you talk about that?
No.
Oh, you
I
should be at that on there.
Okay.
We're getting all that.
Oh,
Okay. I was the oldest, and I don't know if that's why I was the caretaker, if it was just my personality, but I was a second mom to him. So when I would babysit or when the kids were home alone, I was always the one to help him if he needed some help, and Carrie was always the one to play with him. She was the one playing video games or doing whatever he wanted to do, but anytime he needed help, that was my job. So it's that kind of fits that she was teasing you.
Yeah.
But it was also Matt. I don't know. Cassie and I look alike, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but Matt worshipped the ground that Cassie and I walked on. And
that was something that was hard for Carrie. He was always very nice to me. He had lots of patience for me, but for her, he had very little patience for. And it was interesting because she was always the one that would play with him, but he would get mad and frustrated with her very easy, and he hardly ever would get frustrated with me.
Well, it's good to know that I step in his place.
Yeah.
so you could be mean to Carrie.
Yeah, you can be mean to her. Yeah.
Was there anything else?
His funeral was on Friends. When it wasn't, I don't think the actual funeral was as hard on us as it was on other people. And that was interesting too.
But for us, Chris, when Matt's last 2 days of life, he was almost comatose to where he wasn't hardly alive. For us, it was a blessing that he passed away instead of living in some long, extended.
Like drawn out.
Yeah, and so he had the 25th was Christmas Day, and he was playing marbles and laughing and having a good time. 26th and 27th, he was kind of comatose.
You gonna do it outside? Okay.
On the plate.
And the morning of the 28th, he was gone. And so we didn't have a long, awful period, but the short, little, brief period was enough to where we knew it was time. And all these, his wake, the viewing the night before the funeral, there was like 550 people came.
Wow.
And his funeral had about 450 people. And so we ended up being the support for all those people coming up to the casket and seeing him laying there. They fell apart. I mean, it was, all they knew was this sweet little guy that was so much fun to be around, and then boom, he's gone. And so that was, I think, where we, and then when Matt was diagnosed, Roxanne and I had our anger at that point. And I don't know that either one of us got angry when he died. I think that part of the grieving was already done.
Yeah, it didn't.
I don't think the girls got angry either. It was, so.
I don't ever remember actually being angry about it. It would make me angry if kids teased him.
Oh, you should tell them about the kid at school that got.
I don't remember that. We had his elementary school was across the street from my junior high, and I think I was in, well, I must have been in 8th or 9th, and that would make him in, what, 2nd grade, 1st grade?
Yeah, well, he was in 1st grade
Yeah.
because he repeated 1st grade.
That's right. And I got so mad that this same kid was teasing him every day, so I waited until the kids were on recess, and then I left school and I walked across the street on recess and let the kid know he should not be doing that anymore.
One generation, they had a generation of albino. It turned out 2 generations before that, they had an albino man. And when all the men would go out hunting, they left him there.
There's the rest of the story.
Yeah.
So it takes 2 generations for it to present itself.
Do you think that's funny? Do you think that's funny? Yeah. Yeah.
My parents are Mark and Roxanne Christensen, and then my sister is Cassidy Christensen, and brother is Matt.
And Matt had
Hunter syndrome, yeah.
And how was he when he passed?
He was 16. Yep, he was 16.
How many years ago?
It was 11 years ago. And he was 5 years younger than me, so I was in that fun college age time. So,
when Matt was sick, your parents called you.
So my parents called and said that he was sick, and it was Halloween. It was around that time because I remember we had a Halloween party, and Cass and I both decided, well, we'll just go to this party. We'll go home tomorrow. No big deal. And I remember that, my mom had called a couple times, but that wasn't out of the ordinary. So we just knew he was sick, and we'd figure it out. So then we came home the next day and found out that he was definitely more sick than we had assumed, I guess. And then I can't really remember. I think we figured it out. He was given just a couple months to live, so my sister and I decided to move home, spend time with him while we had it. Went up, and it was amazing. I remember I had friends that had already packed a bag. They'd brought, our weekend stuff. Because, we came here for the weekend, we thought. And so then we had some friends that had brought a bag full for maybe the rest of the week or something. And then we went moving up there, and we went up there to move all of our stuff back home for a couple months is what we ended up coming back home for. So, and that time period, I just remember everybody came to visit, all friends, close friends and family members, and it was a fun but obviously stressful time. So,
what your sister told me. It was easier for you to deal with it, but dealing with the other people.
And in my eyes, it was, this is my time with my brother. So it was hard for us to, we wanted to welcome everybody, but we had 3 months with our brother. We didn't want everybody else around, you know. And fair enough, they wanted to, you know, come see him for the last time, or, you know, but it was, some of it was rough. Just, you know, we wanted time with him. We wanted time with our family, is what we wanted.
Do you feel like you got it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was hard at the time, but I think no matter what the situation would have been, I mean, it was emotional. It was, of course it was hard. So I think I could be mad about that. So that's what sticks out in my mind, I guess. So.
But that you were angry.
And I bet it was just me dealing with it. But we had plenty of family time. I think we set aside, you know, Matt time for our family too, so.
Now, do you feel that you have any unresolved issues?
No. I have that anger, and that kind of was brought out, I guess, but I really felt, you know, when people find out that, oh, you had a brother that passed away, oh, I'm so sorry. And my actual thought is, I'm not. He, you know, everybody lives life for a purpose, and we all know his purpose. I mean, he made us who we are, and I mean, yes, we would love to have him here, of course, but, you know, he lived a great life. He touched everybody that he met, of course, but, and, you know, he was hurting his last little bit. I mean, he was always in pain, so it's okay in my eyes, you know. I mean, it's sad, but it's okay, so.
Now, how has it been meeting me?
Emotional. Emotional because I think, well, okay, initially, my dad was saying that, oh, when Steve met you, oh, he reminds me so much of Matt. He reminds me so much of Matt. And it's like, well, maybe, because he hasn't met other NPS people, you know. And so I was like, oh, yeah, you know, maybe. But I didn't think it would. But just, I think it's fun to meet you because you're around his age. I mean, not quite, but around what he would be. And I think it's fun that we're joking back and forth in a way that Matt would have joked. I mean, you get way more jokes than he would have, but I would have been throwing stuff at him just like I'm throwing it at you. Fun, but emotional. I was tired at work today, and so I told one of my friends that, you know, you were in town, and I said, you know, I don't know if it's just that I'm exhausted or that I'm nervous about an interview. And I said, but I'm just kind of emotional today. And so then I had to explain it all. She's not a good friend. She had no idea about Matt. So I had to like start from square one. So
Yeah.
Of course that brought up even more emotions, but fun. But welcome.
Thanks. I'm the double gagger.
You're not, or you are?
Not.
Oh, come on. Well, okay. He had a lot of thick hair, but eventually you know, that he would have, maybe.
I have a beard.
His hair would be white. He would still have hair, it would just be white.
I have gray hair in my
In your
beard.
Yeah, but it's there.
Okay. Well, it was actually interesting to meet with you, you meet some siblings you can tell are still hurt, and actually between you and your sister, I thought you were.
That I was the hurt one?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still sad. Is that what you're... Or I'm still missing him, I guess?
Well, your sister also explained to me that she was kinda the mother and you were more of the friend.
And the difference in the relationships with her and my dad, and then me and my mom with him, was just, I would cry to my mom all the time because he was so mean to me, and all I wanted to do was play with my little brother, you know. But but looking back, I mean, you can, especially meeting other families that have kids with just different things going on. We have a close family that it's just a sister and a brother, and she takes everything out on her brother. I mean, she's just rude to her brother exactly like Matt was rude to me. And I just think it's, you know, he needed to, he was angry, he was in pain. I mean, he had to take it out on someone, so lucky us, my mom and I. So, yeah.
I didn't really hear anything about your mother, but I did hear about your father and your sister. Kind of like they said, if they asked, "Oh, you want McDonald's?" he'd be like, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm.
But then if you asked 10 minutes before, he would be like, "No."
Yeah, no, if he needed help putting his shoes on, "Oh, Matt, can I tie your shoes?" "No." My sister would walk up and "Can you tie these?" You know, I mean, it was a very obvious difference, and I don't know what it was. But it was just a different relationship, I guess. And I remember growing up that I would be playing with him nonstop. I mean, I played Ninja Turtles, and I'm 5 years older than him. I mean, yes, I loved playing. I was still in the playing realm, but I would play whatever he wanted to play. And still, I mean, he'd play with me and he'd play nice with me, but then when it came down to it, he would just be mean.
So that's why you're taking it out on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to hit you a couple times, and
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think my sister's, I mean, even her relationship with me, she is just the more motherly, you know, sibling. She's the oldest child, so that's what she does, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, now do you remember any changes in your parents after Matt's death? I mean,
Well,
that's really kind of stupid.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I think our family, I mean, I always explain, we all live, Salt Lake's a big area, and we all live within, 3 blocks of each other. We are awkwardly close, and I think, this whole experience, this whole life is why we're awkwardly close, because, he got that diagnosis, and, well, even before that, we knew something was wrong,
Can you tell me about that?
I remember when he was young, we would go to Denver all the time, and I just knew something was wrong because he would fall on his head, and he'd always have a big old scuff, you know, always, he'd have a scuff mark. And so I remember, you know, I just knew something was wrong. We'd go to Denver all the time, and it was because he'd fall on his head. And it was, you know, he just had a big head, learning how to walk. We knew something. I mean, he would trip over everything.
Trying to say I'm a
No. Mm-mm.
and I have a big head.
I said he had a big head.
Oh,
He had a lot more hair to weigh it down.
wow.
Yeah, so I remember that, and I remember when he was diagnosed. I remember being at the hospital, and we had to draw pictures, and I didn't know what we were drawing pictures for, but we're sitting in this room drawing pictures. So, and then I remember we were in my aunt's basement, and my sister and I are just laying there, just kind of confused, because we know we should be sad, but we're not really sure what we should be sad about. But everybody else is crying, so should we be sad? And I mean, my parents were great in trying to explain it to us, but how do you, I mean, I think we were 9 and 10 or something like that, and we just knew, we didn't get it. We, you know, at the time I don't think we really understood exactly what it meant. We just knew something was wrong with Matt, and oh well. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's our brother. That doesn't change anything, I guess, was my interpretation.
Now, do you feel having Matt as a brother affected you? I mean, positively, or
Yeah.
your empathy toward others? Your sister told me someone at school used to pick on him, and she walked over. I guess your middle school
It was right across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That she went and made sure he knew.
Yeah. Well, and I think we were so lucky we were in a small town, you know, our early years, and he made these great friends, and I mean, yes, he was different, but kids don't know differences like that. They just recognize, you know, look different and stuff like that. And he had some great friends that stuck up for him. And I, you know, like I was in middle school, or, you know, sorry, I wasn't in middle school. I was in grade school when Cass was in middle school. And so I was with him, you know, and I don't remember any of that. I remember kids, you know, looking at him, and we would encourage questions. And that, I think, was when we were a little older. Like, you can ask him, you know. He had green hair. Most of the time it was like, ask him why his hair is green, you know. That would be the big...
Green hair.
He dyed his hair... This hasn't even come up? He dyed his hair purple. I think it was purple initially, but then green.
No one told me.
Always. He had green hair a lot of the time, and it was for the Grizzlies, the hockey team. Yeah, so they weren't just noticing, you know. Green hair.
Green.
Yeah, and it wasn't always that. I mean, it grew out. He had dark hair under it, so they'd bleach it and then dye it green. And so we'd encourage questions, period. So, and I kind of went off topic because that was older years, but I mean, yeah. But back to how he affected my life and who I am. I mean, I don't know anything else. I mean, he is my family. He makes our family a family, you know. But that's the reason I'm a physical therapist, because I watched what he went through, and this is high school years, you know. He had his surgery, and I remember he had the
Carpal
tunnel, release. And he would go in, and we'd stretch his fingers and I'd help him stretch. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's how he would count to 10 to stretch his fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'd help him stretch. And one day he came home and he had it like straight. And he was like, my curly finger is straight, you know, like he was so proud that he could, and it was just barely straight. And I was like, well, how fun that, you know, he's been working hard, you know, he's making a difference on his, you know, when it was the straightest finger he had was straight, you know, and he was proud of it, and he didn't mind his curly fingers. He was just letting us know that he could straighten one of them. So, and that's my story of, I think I wanted to be a physical therapist before then, but that's when I was like, yeah, I need to do that.
So you definitely feel it had impact
Yeah.
on what? Okay.
And it definitely had an impact on who I am, but also just growing up, just knowing differences in people. I mean, you can tell people in this world that have never dealt with anyone with a disability. They don't know. I mean, meeting Mia's friends, they've never met anyone that looks a little bit different. You know, why are you short? That type of thing. And it's like, I think
I'm not that short.
okay, I mean, why are you bald?
Wow.
No, but I think it's a life experience, just knowing. I don't think it has to be a sibling. I think just knowing somebody that, you know, even is wheelchair bound or lost a finger, you know, I think everybody in life needs to know that there are trials in life and differences in people. So, and I think we were lucky to just know that right off the bat. We didn't have to, I don't know life without a brother with a disability. I don't have a clue what that would be like. So, I don't know if he affected my life, or that's just my life. So this is who I am, I guess.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you would like to share? Or do you have any advice for others, siblings?
I'm glad that I had my sister, and I know she's already given you this answer, but even the Rainiers, I remember after Matt passed away, all I could think of is, oh my gosh, what's Emily ever gonna do? Because at the time it was Brigham and Emily, and that was it. And I had no idea how Emily would ever make it through it. So, I mean, yeah, you need someone. You need someone to talk to. Turns out Emily has someone. Don't worry. She did have other siblings, but that, I mean, at the time it was just those two, and I think that's what I needed. I needed my sister, but again, we're awkwardly close, so she's the caretaker, so but yeah.
Is anything else?
I think I needed to meet you, and just what I needed from you is when I asked you, are you in pain? Because that's the part that I hated about Matt. He never complained of pain. But I mean, you said no. Yeah, no, it's, you know, just achy, but you said it's achy. So yeah, you're in pain. You just don't know what it's like to not be in pain. You don't know what it's like to walk down those stairs and just be fine with it. But so, I don't know. I think that was my number one. I mean, I could have asked anyone. I know, you know.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to ask me?
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but you got me bald. No, I mean, I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad you're, live it up, live your life, because I think that's what that's what I'm proud that we can say Matt lived every ounce of his life, but yeah, I mean, no, I'm proud of you. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Thank you for smacking me around.
I'm gonna
Okay.
know introduce yourself.
Yeah. I'm Paige Piper. My brother is Chad Barton Piper from Phoenix, Arizona.
And your father and mother.
My father's name is Mark Piper, and my mom's name is Sarah Piper, and my sister is Brooke Piper.
Okay. Start. You're in this video because
Of my brother, Chad.
and what did Chad have?
Chad had Hunter syndrome.
And Chad has since passed away. About how many years ago?
In December, it'll be 5 years.
Now, can you recall before your family knew he had Hunter's?
Chad was diagnosed when he was 2, but I wasn't born then.
So he's older.
Yeah, Chad's the oldest, then me, and then my younger sister, Brooke.
Okay, so as far as you're concerned, he's always had it.
Yeah.
Now, were there any kind of things like events during your life that you really knew he had something bad?
I think there were just certain. Okay.
What?
There are just certain situations that it was more apparent. Just things that he couldn't do. I know we wanted to go on a big ski trip, and that just wasn't gonna work for our family because it would have been a real challenge. I just remember the day that one day Chad, he had to start using diapers again, and that was another moment where it was more.
And did you and your sister ever talk about these things?
Yeah, sometimes. I think, I don't know, because from the very beginning, that's all we knew is, it's just, Chad didn't have this disease. That was just our brother. That was our little Chad. And so I think most of the time when we did talk about it, we would just talk about funny stories of Chad or just the positive moments of it. Our parents just raised us to see the glass half full and be grateful for what we had. And so when we did talk about it, it was, we like to think of Chad as a blessing in our family, and he really was. And
when you say blessing, what do you mean?
when I say blessing, I mean I feel truly lucky to have had Chad in my life. I don't think that I would be the same person today if Chad wasn't my brother. I think you can learn a lot from kids like Chad or kids who have other disabilities. I think that they are just little angels that come and they blessed my life, and I am just really grateful that I was able to have Chad for so long, and so Chad is a blessing to me.
Meeting me. Well, actually, we just met.
Yeah. Well, I guess I didn't really know what to expect, because the only other boy that I had met was Brigham Rainier, and then so it's been an experience, and I'm just happy to have met you and to just to talk with you and to see what you're doing. And I guess I didn't know, because from my experience, I thought that all Hunter's boys were like my brother, and so it opened my eyes to see that they're all different levels of functioning, some higher, some not so high. So it's cool to meet you and to see what you're doing and with your life, and that you were motivated and inspired to get an education, and I think that's really cool. And so I guess it just opened my eyes, and I mean, it's hard I think it was harder than I thought, just because you remind me so much of my brother, and so it just makes me miss him. But it's also a happy thing, because I feel like even though we just met and I don't know you very well and I'm getting to know you, it's like I feel at the same time that I do know you. Like, just like I could like randomly just come give you a hug and you would get it, you know? It's like we are on the same wavelength.
Go touch.
Okay. Okay.
Now, you told me the good things.
Mm-hmm.
How about the bad things? Primarily going out with Chad in public.
I think
Well, did anything bad ever stick out in your mind?
I think the only bad things that were hard for our family was my sister and I, and my mom and my dad. We knew that Chad had Hunter syndrome, and we were sensitive to that, and we understood it when we got it, and all of our friends and neighbors got it. But then there were those moments that we would go out, or Chad would come home from school crying because people would make fun of him, and it breaks my heart because of the things that people say because they don't understand. And I think that was definitely a hard thing for me to see, even as a young girl, because he was my brother and I was protective of him. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Now, do you feel having Chad in your life gave you a lot more empathy toward others?
Definitely. It taught me so much, and it taught me tolerance, and it taught me patience, and it taught me to be understanding, and it taught me a new kind of love. And like I said, it doesn't have to be just a boy with Hunter syndrome. It's any person who, and I feel a connection with them, and I have so much love in my heart for people who are affected by it.
Now you're in college, right? Do you feel that Chad affected where you wanna go in your sorry,
You're good.
think in your professional life?
I have struggled with what I wanted to do and what I felt like my purpose was in life, and I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out. But I definitely thought of being a special ed teacher because I felt that I would be a perfect person for that, and because I was able to be involved in high school with our special ed program, and I just have a love for these kids. And but I ended up not studying special education and studying English literature. So I've thought of writing a book about my experience, and so that would probably be, hopefully that's the answer that you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm remembering my talks with your parents. You guys had something in your school called Buddy or...
Best Buddies. Yeah.
So tell me a little about that.
Best Buddies was a club on campus, and it promoted one-to-one friendships and with the special ed students, and basically we were interviewed and we applied and had to fill out our interests, and they matched us with a child who shared similar interests with us, and they had monthly activities, and then we were encouraged to meet with our buddy once a week. And Brooke and I got really involved with Best Buddies throughout high school. Brooke was the president of it, and I held a secretary position, and I got to meet a lot of kids through that. And I was never Chad's buddy, but it was fun because it wasn't just Brooke and I who were involved, it was all of my friends, all of Brooke's friends, and so we would all be there together. And I think every year one of my friends had Chad as their buddy, so it made it fun. We would all get together, we would go to movies, and so that was really special for me, and because I got to be involved with Chad, and I got to see his classroom every day and eat lunch with him and his friends, and that played a significant role in my life because all those kids can teach you something different, and I I loved being involved in Best Buddies, and I know Brooke did too. And I still keep in touch with some of the kids from high school.
Now, if you were asked to give advice to other siblings, what would it be?
My advice would be to not think about yourself all the time. I would catch myself being moody. That might just be your average teenager, but sometimes I thought the world revolved around me, and I had to take myself out of that and realize that my family situation was unique, and I had to, sometimes all the things I wanted to do wasn't best for our family, and I had to sit back and realize that at a young age that it wasn't all about me. It was about Chad. It was about our whole family, and I just think that you need to work together as a family, because that's the only way that you're gonna be successful, is to try to be the strongest family that you can, and just support each other even when you have those bad days. Just be there for one another, and just be patient with one another, and love your family even if it's not ideal from other standards. Just realize and try to take what you can from it, and try to recognize that it is a blessing and that you can learn from something.
Now, you mentioned family. Your family is not the typical. What was your family life like?
My parents got divorced when I was 5 or 6, and my dad remarried a year later, and we got 4 new step siblings, and then my mom remarried 4 years later, and I got another step sibling. And so I was grateful that my parents were cordial, and they tried to make it about Chad, Brooke, and I, and they worked really hard to make it as easy on us as they could. I mean, they're not perfect. There were definitely moments, like I'm sure every family has, and children of divorced families. But blending families was definitely a challenge and difficult at times, but I don't know, I just try to think that not everyone's family is perfect, even if it looks like it on the outside. But I felt that my family and my upbringing really has shaped me into the person that I am today, and that Chad played a significant role in my life and still teaching me things every day, even though he passed almost 5 weeks ago.
Now, is there anything you would like to say to finish? I don't know.
I just think that, like I said, I'm just so grateful to have been blessed with Chad in my life, and the knowledge of Hunter syndrome, and I wouldn't know about it at all if it wasn't for Chad, and I wouldn't have met you, and I wouldn't have met the Rainiers. And I think that although that this can be a battle, I think that it brings people together, and we can cherish the moments we have together, and I just feel like we're all family, even though he may not know each other very well, but we all have this one thing that binds us together, and I'm grateful for that because the things that it has taught me and the things that it can teach others, and I want other people to know about it, and I want people to be able to feel the feelings that I have.
My name is Brooke Piper. I'm Chad Piper's little sister.
Your parents,
My parents are Mark and Sarah Piper.
your sister,
My sister is Paige Piper.
okay? Now, your brother has since passed away.
Yeah, my brother Chad passed away almost 5 years ago when I was 15.
Now, do you remember any time when, well, before you knew he had hunters?
I don't remember because he was 5 years older than me. So he was diagnosed when he was 2. And so by the time I was born, they already knew everything about it. So I sort of just like grew up knowing that he had Hunter syndrome.
How did that go? Did you have anyone you could talk to?
I think like the first couple of years, my parents just, it was hard. Like I couldn't really understand how they were gonna describe the situation to us. So I think they slowly like Chad's different, but he's still your big brother and like he still loves you. And then they kind of started saying like Chad's not always gonna be here. So we gotta like love him a lot and just like make sure we spend as much time as we can with him. So I don't know. I think they did a good job, like just like trying to explain to like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old about what the situation was. But I don't know how I would have done it. But so I probably talked to my mom mainly about it when I could, when I was younger, and then definitely when I was older. She's the one that I'd go to talk about it.
But your parents have divorced, correct?
Yeah, my parents divorced when I was 4. So that definitely made a rocky time a little bit. Yeah, and so then Chad ended up living with my dad, and then my sister and I live with our mom.
How do you think that played out?
I think like just like any divorce is hard on any kids. But the way that my parents explained it was that they wanted to make sure that like all the kids were getting enough attention and like feeling like they're important too, because Chad was a handful. So I think my mom had always felt a little bit bad because she would always like be so preoccupied taking care of Chad that she'd forget about my sister and I. But like I never had a problem with it. I never saw it as like I wasn't getting enough like attention at all. It was just sort of like the way it was. So like I understood the setup, but it was hard because I didn't get to see him as much as I'd like. So I'd only see him when I go over to my dad's house, or if like my mom picked him up and we would go see a movie or something. So I remember so he passed away when I was 15, like almost 6 months before my 16th birthday. And I was all excited about turning 16 because then I could drive and I could pick him up and I could like go take him places and like I could hang out with him on my own. And I was just so excited to be able to do that. And that never happened, so.
Sister ever get time with your father?
Yeah, Paige and I would go over to our dad's house a couple of times a week and every other weekend. So we saw my dad and Chad like a lot, I guess, but not as much as we'd like, I think.
So now let's fast forward to where Chad passed away. How did it happen? Was it sudden or?
So I guess with Chad, how I always pictured him passing away was gonna be like a prolonged like hospital stay, or like that he'd get really sick and then they'd be like, well, we think this is it, or like hospice and everything. So thinking about him passing away always kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety, because I never wanted it to go like that and him be in pain and it just be like terrible couple of months and then he'd just pass away. So he ended up passing away pretty sudden. It was in the winter, and each winter he would usually get pneumonia. But so he did that winter, and so he was getting pneumonia, and like it was part of the typical year, but he kicked it and he was good, and he like got over his pneumonia, and he was actually doing really well. Like he was breathing better, and he just seemed a lot more like alert, and just like, I don't know, he seemed a lot more lively to me. And then my mom took him to lunch the day before he passed away, and she just said he was really active, because he had been slowing down a lot that previous year and just like didn't really seem like he was all there. And then I was at my dad's house it was over winter break, and I guess he woke up in the middle of the night, and he needed to have breathing treatments because he did have some like fluid in his lungs. So my dad like got up, was giving him his breathing treatments, and he was settling down, and then he just stopped breathing. So my dad like called the ambulance, they took him to the hospital. I meanwhile was asleep, like didn't wake up for any of this. And then I woke up to my mom that morning, which was confusing because it was at my dad's house, and I was like, what's going on? So she took me, she woke me up and she's like, Chad went to the hospital this morning. He wasn't breathing very well, so we're gonna go. And so I was like, okay. And like for some reason I just sort of already knew, I think. I just like, we had a scare the summer before with him. He was in the hospital for a couple days, and like that's when they were sort of like, okay, get ready because we think this is gonna be it. But then he was fine. So but like for some reason this time I was like, I think this is it. We got to the hospital, and that's when my dad told me like he had passed away that morning.
So, who did you talk with at that point?
Who did I talk to like at the hospital?
Well, like confide in?
Trying to remember. A lot of like around when he passed away, and like the funeral was sort of like spotty. I don't really remember a lot of it. But I do remember I went outside and I just had to like be by myself for a second. And then I had like a little bit of a breakdown. And I remember talking to my aunt on my dad's side. She like had, because the family ended up all coming to the hospital, and like she like walked up and was like, so she sat down and talked to me. But I mainly talked to my mom. I just like, she's always the person that I'd go to and talk to her about it. But right when he passed away, I don't really remember a lot. I just think I was in a little bit of a fog. It just sort of like happened, and then I just like, I don't remember a lot about it.
Now, your sister is around your age. Did you guys ever talk to each other?
Paige and I don't really talk about Chad. We didn't like when he was still alive, and we don't now. So that was really hard, I think, grieving and like moving on and everything. I've had a hard time with that because I think her and I cope differently, and I was more the type where like I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to like have someone to talk to, and the way I saw it was that Paige was like the only sibling I have left, so I was like, this is it, like it's you and me, like we got to stick together. And she was more like just wanted to be quiet, like didn't want to talk about it, very subdued, and just didn't want to talk about it with anyone. So it's hard. It's definitely hard not being able to talk about someone that was so impacting and like made a huge difference in my life and our lives as like siblings and a family. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I really hope that one day we can get to that point where we can like talk about him and maybe even like go back from the beginning and talk about like growing up and then his funeral and like talk about those things and like the feelings that we had, because we just don't, his name like doesn't come up, and it's unfortunate, and I wish it was different.
Okay, now we're gonna go back a little. Was there an event that usually public would react badly to you or your brother?
Like, did people make fun of him, like that type of thing? Yeah. I kind of got used to that growing up. I guess when I was younger, or when Paige and I were younger, we were pretty protective of our brother. That's sort of how it was, like from when I can remember up until when he passed away. I got very offended when people would stare at him or like make jokes. Like people were very, very rude. Especially when we were younger, kids can be vicious. That's for sure. So there were like many occasions where I'd like get in fights with kids because I'd be like, "Are you looking at him?" Like, like I get all like trying to be all intense when I'm like 7. That didn't work out very well. But yeah, so many occasions where kids would just like say the dumbest things, like so rude, and my mom would always sit me down and be like, "Okay, like we need to talk about how you react to these things. Like you can't beat up every kid that looks at him. But like calmly go over and be like, this is my brother Chad. If you have any questions, like feel free to ask me," and then walk away and like be more mature about it. So that was always really hard because I'm like, but they're being mean. So I just like freak out. But yeah, so I don't, none in particular that I remember like off the top of my head, but like that happened. That was like a typical day going anywhere. People would always be staring and I'd like stare back at them and be like, what? Try me.
Now, you had a program in your school that paired you up with special needs children. What was it called then?
Yeah, so at my high school we had a program called Best Buddies, and it was Chad participated when he first got to high school, and it was a program where they would match up general ed students with special ed students based off, they'd like fill out forms saying like what their favorite activity and stuff like that. So it was like a friendship club, and we would host events year-round, like for everyone to like come together and like have big parties and like pool parties and stuff like that. But then we'd also require the buddies to do stuff separately on their own. So I participated that all 4 years. My senior year, I was the president of this club, which was really cool. But yay. Yeah, so it was really neat to be able to participate in that, and it was just cool to see like my peers at my school like being open-minded and being sweet and gentle to like these incredible people that I surrounded myself with, and especially when I'd see my brother just be like treated like a king. Like it was great. And it was just really cool to be able to see people really learn, like begin to learn what I've been learning my whole life, and just like get that experience with kids with special needs. So it was a really great and like positive like thing for myself, and I think Chad definitely benefited from the program too.
So now going to the future, has Chad affected your professional, what you wanna do?
Yeah, I'd say in like some ways he's affected what I want to do as far as like a career. I'm a sociology major and I'm thinking about adding a public health minor. And I think he like sparked an interest in me, like an interest of people sort of, and that's sort of how sociology came to be. I just think like I'm fascinated by how people work and how like society works, and so like, and just like cultures and like differences and things like that. But I mean, all growing up, everyone would always tell me like, oh, you should go into special education because you're so like, you're such a natural at it, like you like have a full understanding and like you know what you're doing and stuff like that. And it made sense a lot of the time. I'm like, yeah, like I know how to handle it, you know, but then it hits home like in every way, so I don't think that I'd be able to handle that. I wish I could take my experience with Chad and be like, I'm gonna like do so much good with this, and I'm gonna like work with these kids because I love them and I loved working in high school, but it's a lot harder than I expected. The 2 years following Chad passing away, it was a lot harder to be part of that group, because at first I was in the club where it was all the families with the kids with special needs, like in the program, and then Chad passed away, so I was like, well, am I in that group now, or am I like the random like general ed student group, like just the normal kids? So it was a little bit of an identity crisis, I think. So as far as like my professional life, I mean, yeah, he's impacted every aspect of my life, but not in particular, I guess, what I'm gonna do, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, now advice you would have for other children going through this, or parents going through it?
Oh man. Well, it's hard. It's been like the hardest thing. Like from day one, like growing up, it was hard, you know, knowing that like I was one day not gonna have my brother was hard. Losing him was the hardest day of my life. And then now living without him is like the hardest thing ever, and thinking of future and everything, and like not knowing he's not gonna be there. So I know how hard it is. It's a process, I think. I feel like how I've coped with losing Chad is that I don't have another option, really. It's like, because a lot of people are like, how are you like so strong, and how are you so like happy and just like, you know, just like keep going and things like that. It's like I don't really have another option, and I know that Chad wouldn't want anything else. So I hope I'm like living a life that he'd be proud of. But just love your sibling or your child as much as you possibly can. Like enjoy those moments with them. Hold their hand. Like that's what I miss the most. Not the most, but like one of the biggest things I miss is just holding his hand. He had the best hands ever. Yes, those ones. And just really just learn from them. Like I just love just sitting there and just like being in his presence just made me feel like a better person. And I felt so blessed and so lucky to be able to call him my brother. I was so proud of him. So just enjoying every second of every day that you have with them. And yeah, but I wish I could have like an instruction book that I could give people, like, this is how you deal with this, like from day one to everything, but I don't. But yeah, I don't know.
Is there anything else?
I don't know, for all the siblings out there, I'm always open if you ever need to talk to anybody, because that would have been really nice growing up, I think, to have been able to reach out to other siblings going through exactly what I am and was going through. So yeah, I'm an open book. Questions are awesome, and just having a support network, I'm interested for anyone else that is. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks. just kinda go to both.
Okay. I'm Emily Rainier. Do you want me to tell them how old I am?
I'm sure.
Okay, I'm 16 years old.
And why are you in this?
Because my brother had MPS II.
Do you want her looking at you, Chris, or the camera?
Fine.
Either way.
Yeah. Brother has since passed away.
Yes.
How many years?
4.5 years ago.
How old were you?
I was 12 years old.
So you remember it
Yes.
now. You're the second oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Your brother was the oldest.
Yep.
So, what do you remember about him?
I remember his smile and his laugh, and when he would talk to me and say my name, and I just remember all the memories that we had, all the trips that we went on, his sweet spirit that he always had with him. I remember a lot of the pain that he went through. Yeah, lots of things, I guess.
So, you are younger than him.
Yes.
So, you always knew him as having hunters.
Yeah, I always knew him as having hunters or having the cancer. So he had cancer as well.
Or cancer. Wow. That was a nice double whammy.
Yeah.
Now, growing up, did you have anyone you could talk to?
My parents, kind of, but it wasn't any different for me because that's just how I thought all big brothers were until I got like older. But when I was little, I just thought it was normal because it was all I ever knew. But when I got older, I realized that he was different than my friends' older siblings, and then I just talked to my parents about it. But
And how did your friends react to it?
my friends that I had since I was really little, like my friends that grew, like my friends from when I was really little, they treated him normal too, because that's just how they they just knew Brigham as Brigham, and that's who he was. And then as I got older, my friends were really good to him. I have a really good friend, and she has a sister who has disabilities, and so she and I kind of were close because of that, because she had a sister and I had a brother. So most of my friends were really, really accepting of it, and they just treated him with as much love as I did. So that was really nice.
So, you can't remember any time that he was made fun of?
Not with my friends, but with like other people who I didn't know. When we would go to Disneyland and people would like stare at him and point at him, I remember that, but not with my friends. Just with people who I wasn't associated with. So.
Okay. Do you feel that if you would have had someone to talk to, either like a brother or a sister, that would have helped?
I think when he passed away, it would have helped, because he was my best friend, and because my little siblings, they were really little, and so they didn't know Brigham like I knew him. So I think it would have helped when he passed away, because I didn't really. My parents loved him as like a son, but they he was like my best friend, so that was hard. So I think it would have helped if I had someone to talk to about that, like knew him like I knew him.
Did you ever talk to other siblings of Hunters?
Yeah, the Pipers and Mark's girls, we were all pretty good friends, and after he died though, I mean, well, not really, I don't know, I just didn't really come up ever. But we were all pretty good friends because we all had that special bond with our brothers.
Okay. Is there any advice you would give to any sibling or parent of a special needs child?
I think just love them like you love your other children, and make every moment count, because you never know when they're gonna be gone in your life again. And so just, my parents did a really good job of making memories with us, and I think that's what is the most important, is to just make memories with your children.
I fell down, down, down into this dark and lonely hole. There was no one there to care about me anymore, and I needed a way to climb and grab a hold of the edge. You were sitting there, holding a rope, and we'll go up, 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 but I'll fly a little higher. Go up in the clouds because the view's a little nicer up here, my dear. It won't be long now, it won't be long now. When we get back on land, well, I'll never get my chance. Be ready to live, and it'll be ripped right out my hands. And maybe someday we'll take a little ride, go up, 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 and everything will be just fine. We'll go up, 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 but I'll fly a little higher. Go up in the clouds because the view's a little nicer up here, my dear. It won't be long now, it won't be long now. If only I had a little bit more time. If only I had a little bit more time with you. We could go up, 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 then take that little ride. We'll sit there holding hands, and everything will be just right.